So a very big thanks to our MC, James. Thank you. Let me extend a very warm welcome to our online audiences tuning in from many different time zones to this session of Target Gender Equality Live with a focus on the Asia Pacific region. We appreciate your keen interest, and like you, I'm also looking forward to an engaging conversation with our esteemed panelists, whom I will introduce in a moment. But first, allow me to provide some context for our session. The business case for gender equality is clear, yet at the current rate of progress, it will take 267 years to close the economic gender gap, according to latest estimates by the World Economic Forum. Unleashing the full potential of women and girls could add more than $12 trillion to the global GDP, drive significant positive impacts on business productivity, boost the bottom line, and support families and communities around the world. To advance gender equality across the region and beyond, I encourage all companies to sign up to the Women's Empowerment Principles, or WEPs for short. The WEPs are a set of 7 principles launched by the UN Global Compact and UN Women that companies can commit to advance gender equality across the workplace, marketplace, and communities. And in the Asia Pacific region, I am very pleased to announce that we have nearly 1,700 WEP signatories. Just 3 years ago, there were less than 600. And this shows the incredible progress across the region, yet we know that much more work remains. So while we are headed generally in the right direction, the worst thing we can do now is to succumb to the temptation to become complacent, as there is a real concern that during the pandemic, we have also seen the gender gap widening and progress backsliding as more women were employed in the informal sector and had to drop out of the workforce to take on even more unpaid care work than they already do. And this is not just a concern for women, it has an impact on everyone, as it will undermine hard-won socioeconomic gains made over decades and detract us from achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So let me now turn to my very distinguished panelists and introduce them in alphabetical order. Dr. Alka Mittal, Human Resources Director with the additional charge of Chairperson and Managing Director, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Limited, and President of the Global Compact Network, India. Welcome. Ms. Sheena Pimentel, Head of Corporate PR, Forest Interactive, from the Philippines, but I understand representing a Malaysian company. Welcome to you, Sheena.
Happy to be here.
And last, but certainly not least, Ms. Pepe Hitipeo, CEO and Principal Consultant, Pirayan Partners from Indonesia. Welcome, Pepe.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi. All three have extensive biographies with impeccable credentials and rich and varied experiences of leadership and management across the private sector, government relations, science and technology, media, and social entrepreneurship, just to name a few. So let's get started. My question to all three panelists: all of your companies have become WEP signatories around a year ago. What incentivized you to make your commitment to gender equality public at such a critical point in time while the world has been dealing with a pandemic and multiple crises? So perhaps I'll start in reverse order from Pepe.
Okay, thank you for your question. So if we talk about incentive or motivation, to me, I think it's rather personal. I have personally benefited from leadership that is in favor of gender equality since when I was still a fresh graduate working in a nonprofit organization to the time when I joined Pirayan Partners as an employee back then in 2014, until I was trusted by the shareholders to become CEO of the company in 2020, just shortly before the pandemic. So I think I'm able to be here today is because I've met good leaders and mentors who never doubt the ability of women, right? So learning from my own experience, I want to make sure that within our company, Pirayan Partners, no matter when, be it now or in 10 years ahead, there will always be leaders who support the enhancement of gender equality. Therefore, I think the commitment that is announced to the public is very important for us because it becomes more binding and we will be more accountable as we are aware that many people out there will watch us.
Thank you very much. And thanks for being so succinct. Sheena, over to you. Same question.
Yeah, I think for Forest Interactive, we've always stood our ground about gender equality in the workplace. Even our senior management, we have 70% women, and in the office as well. Every time we have an event, we always encourage like it's free for all. It's not just for one gender, you know. But also because we've been winning all of these awards, and we were saying like, okay, we've been winning this, but are we actually monitoring the things that we do? Does it really give impact and not just, you know, based on numbers? So being a signatory just empowers that. And we think that by being this kind of role model in the industry, we can impact more lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's great to know that 70% of your team is comprising of women. That's not something you see very often in our part of the world. Over to you, Alka, if I may call you Alka and dispense with the titles.
Definitely, Jamshed, because the sound of one's name, I think everyone likes. And greetings to all. It's so good to be connected with all across different time zones and different domains. And in fact, I perceive that gender equality is a precondition in our sustainability efforts and journey. And this was realized by us at ONGC way back. I remember when I came across the WEPs, the Women Empowerment Principles. This was way back in 2010. And I took it as an agenda that at least all those across the organization should understand what WEPs are. And we came up with a customized version of what abiding with WEPs will mean to all of us. And let me share with pride that when we signed up, all were totally on board about it. And when we talk about WEPs and the need to have more and more empowerment for women, the climate crisis and of course our environmental and biodiversity degradations, hunger, poverty, other global scourges have persisted. And we understand that despite the pandemic, now is the time when we have to do something to raise the levels of our awareness about having women involved in so many areas where we could do very good work with their involvement. Because what we see that women made up the majority of health professionals. They were also essential workers at the front lines of the COVID response. And women were also involved in online teaching. All the online teaching that was happening, women were taking lead in that regard. And same ways for ONGC. We had good number of women working in our fields. There were girls, bright, technically highly qualified girls who were working in our offshore installations for 70 days at a length, though their normal routine stint there is 14 days at a time. They go back to their family after that. Same ways, the girls were working in onshore installations, they were working in offices, and they were working at home, working from home. That became a major challenge because the creches were not functional. So this way we see that this is our opportunity to make a difference, because what I have seen in addition to this is that while the women have worked with total commitment and sincerity, we also understand that various studies and analysis have shown to us that unleashing the full potential of women and girls would add trillions to the global GDP. And for a country like India, which is growing, which is actually growing younger also with passing time, now is our opportunity to involve the entire workforce. And why should women be left behind? So with this philosophy, ONGC is actually taking lead in this regard, and signing up for the WEP is just a logical conclusion of our thinking, the way we were working. So I would say that this had to happen earlier.
Thanks very much. You in fact already addressed some of my subsequent questions, which I will come back to. But I'm glad that you know, in a non-traditional industry, you know, in a sense where you work, where there typically are fewer women, you also I think had the wisdom of promoting the WEPs much earlier when they were first conceived. So thank you for that. Let me come to my question to Sheena. To dig a little bit deeper on the WEPs gender gap analysis tool, which is increasingly gaining momentum in our region, increasing from 5% of total users in 2020 to 13% by 2022. So quite a jump during the COVID period. When your company initially used this gender gap analysis tool and analyzed your company's performance on gender equality, what were some immediate issues that you felt your company had to address? And what were some issues that you wanted to tackle in the long term? Sorry, it's a fairly long question, but
thank you for that. It's really related as well to what we're tackling right now in the company, because I think I mentioned earlier that we have so many events. So we celebrate all the national days of every nationality in our company, plus the international days, be it for forests, for the seas, like everything. But then we saw that when we did a survey, we still got answers that they didn't feel safe, or like they didn't feel like they can be heard, or like they're actually listened to. So then we saw the gap there, because we've been doing so much, and we saw, okay, all the SDGs, we have a scorecard. We're doing this. But then in the results, it's not there. And then when we really dug deeper, we saw that, okay, we have existing policies that are actually based on industry standard. But in terms of translating that to our actual people, we didn't see that, okay, if me, myself, I couldn't find the consultation form easily, that's not really that's not really helping our people. So after signing that and seeing like, okay, we're missing a lot of this, we acted immediately. We went to HR, our people operations department. Okay, we need to change this policy. We need to improve that. We need to make this seen. If it has to be a pop-up in our webpage, then we should do that. And I think we're on the right track now, especially during the International Women's Day. We have so many newsletters and awareness campaigns, and I'm waiting for it to come into fruition.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Of course, I'm going to move swiftly now to ask another question to Pepe. Regional WEPs data shows that in Asia, 42% of companies have time-bound measurable goals and targets in their gender equality strategy. Based on your learnings as part of your participation in the UN Global Compact's Target Gender Equality Initiative, why do you believe target setting is important? In a nutshell, what are your organization's targets and main strategy when it comes to gender equality, including women's leadership?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because as a consulting firm, we always advise our clients to set specific goals or target, because we believe that targets will help us to get somewhere, to get a place where we want to be, right? So on one hand, target becomes our direction, and on the other hand, it also becomes our evaluation tool as well. So in our organization or in our company, we actually want to start small. Right? Yes, we have now a female CEO, but I think it wasn't really because of a systematic gender equality commitment of the organization. I saw it more as a favor that I have or that I get from leaders who have been enlightened about gender equality. Yeah, so you can call me, I'm lucky, right? But I think now what we need to do is to start from the basic again, where our company needs to institutionalize gender equality into all aspects that we do with written policies and also evaluation and measurement tools. So I think that's what we are going to do in our company.
Thank you so very much. I think, I mean, you're absolutely right. We have to move from, having this as a commitment and a pledge to actually seeing that translated in action. And both your and Sheena's comments, I think, are very pertinent in that regard. I'm going to come back to Alka now. And let's talk about another crisis, the climate crisis. If we want to achieve a just transition to a net zero economy, advancing gender equality is critical. But data from the WEPs gender gap analysis tool shows that only around a third of companies are prioritizing the recruitment of women in traditionally underrepresented roles. So what is your organization doing to advance women's leadership, particularly in STEM roles, science, technology, engineering, and math?
I totally agree, Jamshed. This is one domain where we are like the oil and gas business. It is not a traditional role for women, and especially when it comes to the technical girls. And today, young women are actually entering our organization in significant numbers, and we are able to provide an enabling environment where women are nurtured to grow in their respective career paths in managerial and leadership roles, and eventually into the corporate boardrooms, breaking the proverbial glass ceiling, I would say. In last 6 years, 600 women have joined the workforce, and they are from 80% of them are from the technical discipline. So what have we done right? What have we been doing to achieve this? Because I thought that let me also share with you what has been done, and then talk a little about what can be done more. So one of the major challenges for us is truly to get the girls to come on board, to apply for roles in this. When they pass out of their various science or technical or engineering courses, they have options available to them, and they could as well choose any of the industries. So why should they choose this? So what we have done is we have become one of the organizations which is seen as not only the top national oil company of the country. It is seen as having the largest market cap, but we have also created an ecosystem where girls are able to work in toughest of areas with total comfort. For that, we have introduced certain small policy initiatives, like introducing a buddy system where two girls will be posted together in a field location. So what happens, they draw lots of strength and comfort from presence of the other person. We have also introduced specific training programs at top management institutes for professional development, because there's another challenge, girls join organizations, but they don't tend to remain with organizations. This is what we had seen about 20 years back, but now things have changed. With the introduction of various policy initiatives, girls tend to remain with us, and they aspire to reach the boardroom. My being there on the board happened about 4 years back, but I have seen the kind of professional expertise that is building up amongst the girls. And what also I have seen is that we had introduced recently a mentoring initiative for the women. It's called Urjaswini in Hindi. It is a Hindi term which means a person who's full of energy. So these are the girls who are not only understanding the nuances of our trade, they are also understanding how they can become leaders, because they may be expert in their own domain, but if we don't inculcate certain strong strengths in them by way of these leadership development programs, we are missing out again on our goals. So that is what we have done, and I am seeing the results happening. Like for next 2-3 years, I am very confident that we'll have at least 2-3 girls on our board. And this is something which is very significant, because in the oil and gas sector, till now, the glass ceiling, the so-called glass ceiling was very much there. And that is what the girls would say at any point of time. So I'm hopeful for the future.
Thank you. No, hold that thought, because I'm going to probe a little bit more on that. Both you and Sheena, this question is addressed to you both. You are both working in sectors that are traditionally male dominated, as you've already attested. And you've talked about a number of initiatives, the buddy system, mentorship. But what do you think has been working when it comes to engaging male leaders and colleagues on the topic of gender equality? Because that's part of the challenge, isn't it? I mean, it's not just the women getting more training. It is about changing mindsets and getting the men on board. So how has that worked for you? And maybe Alka, you go first and I'll come to Sheena.
Okay, fine. So I'll just take it off from where I mentioned about the WEPs. I still remember in 2010, When I talked about WEPs, I had to sell the idea to my director HR, and he said, "Why should we talk about it? We just have 6% girls in the workforce." I said, "But we are not looking at keeping ourselves at 6%." So that was the beginning made. And he said, "Okay, you come out with a document," but the document could be there. International Women's Day could be celebrated on one day in the year. But after that, persistently, we had to build up on the narrative. We had to talk about how girls are standing out. And the credit for that goes to my predecessor, another director HR, who said, "Let us listen to the stories of women leaders." So I was one of those who was asked to share my story of how I worked in remote areas and I gained in terms of confidence, experience, exposure. Same ways, there were other women from different technical fields who were talking about their experiences. So the young girls started getting inspired. They started looking at it that they are good. And not only that, when these stories are shared, the men also started seeing value in what we are contributing to the organization. So when I became director HR, till then, lots of water had already flown under the bridge, from under the bridge, because what happened, our board was almost like ready to have a lady on board. And when I took over, I saw that there would be lots of discussions happening about awards to be given to girls or promotions. And I would just wait and I would pause and see how others are responding. And what I was very pleasantly surprised about was most of the directors were vouching for the performance of the girls. So let us give credit to the girls who are working in the fields, who are working in different significant roles. They also gained confidence, and those around them gave them that space to prove their worth. And that is it. It is not I would say a few days or a few months that would get us there. It has been 12 years since we started talking about it. And today I can say with confidence that if a girl is willing to put in her best effort, there is no stopping her. I have proved it to myself. I have seen it happen to myself, and I am seeing it happen to so many of my colleagues, whether they are in exploration discipline, where they go and work in deep jungles for exploration, or they are working in production platforms. They are the best of them, and they are people tend to forget also that they are from a different gender. They all work together, they all laugh together, they all network.
That's great.
That is it.
Wonderful. No, that's a great example. Sheena, same thing for you. What have you seen working when it comes to engaging the male leadership to move the needle on gender equality?
I think one thing also about being a multinational company is that we rely so much on industry standards and global standards. So when we signed up for WEP, it actually gave them an idea that, oh, okay, we're lacking on this. So on their level as managers and then C levels, they're like, okay, if this is something important, then yes, we should do it. And then another thing would be, we would get questions like, why are we celebrating IWD but not International Men's Day? So for us in corporate PR, as communicators, we have to make them understand that as a man, you can be an ally to support this campaign. And then that already makes a big difference. So we get them to talk, to speak, to be part of the discussion, not just women alone. So we do videos like, okay, what types of harassment did you experience in the workplace? Not in our workplace, maybe in your outside your life. And then that gave them an idea that, okay, there is really a big disparity also in like, how, like example, a salesperson. If it's a woman, you have to wait 30 minutes. But if you're a man, you can get in easily. And that the men in our company saw that, and they're like, oh, no wonder we need to help you. So okay, next time that happens, then we're also looking at like, how can you help as a bystander? And then the more they see that our people are looking to that direction, the management team are also getting more supportive. Like, okay, what more can we do? What more can we do? So yeah, you start by listening with intent. And then if there's criticism, you don't just brush it off like, oh, it's not really important. You have to bring it up. And for me, for example, because I'm in the management team, it plays a big role because I have a seat at the table. They listen to me. So it's important that whoever leads your sustainability efforts also really gathers the data so that when the management team sees it, there's no reason to say no.
And that's an excellent point. I think too often, I think the problem, and again, I speak as a man, is that when you have the privilege, you are fairly blinded to those that don't have it because you're not in their shoes. And again, the point that and that realization, once that realization kicks in, I think there tends to be a greater willingness to do something about it. And of course, as managers and leaders, no company CEO wants to see their benchmarks or their international status reduced. So that's a good tactic of saying you have to keep up with international standards. Whether or not you actually believe on gender equality really is maybe a little bit besides the point at that stage, but it's important. So let me come to you, Fefe. Thank you very much, Sheena, for that response. Fefe, there has been, we've been talking about policies, and many companies have, paid maternity, and some of them have paternity leave policies. Also, the current pandemic has brought an additional spotlight on gender inequalities in the care economy. So which family supportive measures have you found to be effective towards creating a level playing field for women balancing professional and personal lives? And where do you think the private sector can contribute to tackling existing stereotypes and cultural expectations of women carrying the brunt of care responsibilities? It's the sort of triple burden that women have, not just at work, but at home as well, which is all too well documented.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. So I think companies could offer more flexibility to female employees, right, who have to take care of their children. So I think this could be very effective. Of course, this can be varied as well, depending on the company situations and also employees' needs, right? And another example, I think, is also to give an option of being able to work later than usual or normal working hours, or to deliver the work based on the number of outputs instead of hours. So I think we should do more or beyond the traditional measurements here. And I think by having more women as top management, private sector could really contribute to tackling the existing stereotypes and cultural expectations of women doing all the care responsibilities. I think we all agree that actions speak louder than many words, right? So I think private sector should really showcase that women can do so much more than just chores. Yeah, I think that's my opinion.
Thank you. I think we're coming towards the final question, and this is, I think, like a the sort of fast round. I think 30 seconds response. It's a tough question. Many companies that take the WEPs tool tell us it's impossible to implement all the recommended actions at once. So, in your opinion, and I think you've already alluded to this in some of your responses, what key action, maybe one or two, would you recommend to all companies as a priority to accelerate progress with respect to gender equality? So perhaps I'm going to randomly call Sheena. What do you think? And I'll come around to all of you.
I think you can start by just listening to them, by telling them that there is a safe space psychologically and physically for them in your workplace. Start there, because after that, they will just, they will even help you bring this campaign to fruition. And another thing would be also start small. Like, you don't have to do it so big. You can start with your policy, look at the gaps, and then the moment you fill that in, it all starts from there.
Wonderful, thank you. Fifi. Same question.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I would suggest also the same as what Sheena mentioned earlier. Let's start with a small but impactful step, which is to obtain the top management's commitment that needs to be institutionalized formally. And I think afterwards, all other activities or programs can follow.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Rapid fire round. That's the word I was looking for. Alka, over to you. What are the one or two things that you think really would be a priority if we cannot do all of it at once?
Yes, two things I feel. One is the top management commitment. Definitely, without that, the girls will not come forward, and neither will the others who are there around them give them that kind of recognition. Second is building the confidence of the girls by giving them opportunities to build their capacity, and for that giving them the right kind of exposure. I have seen at times girls say that they are not sent to the fields because we care too much for them. So while we care for them, we have to provide them opportunities, we have to nudge them a little. That is the only way their confidence gets built and their competence gets further built. So that is it. I feel building competence, they will prove their worth in times to come then.
Thank you so very much for all your inputs. I think we have done reasonably well. I'm impressed with time, hopefully. So let me, I'm not going to try and paraphrase or try and summarize what you've already said far more eloquently than I can, but just a few points I've picked up while you were speaking in terms of, actionable things, trying to start with small steps, but also some meaningful things such as ensuring that there are adequate number of women on boards at the very top, not just the tokenistic one person. Sometimes we have that, but we need to have a really sustained effort. Also, I think somebody mentioned that, this isn't about making gender equality the politically correct thing, or in terms of just celebrating International Women's Day once a year and you can tick off the box as a company. It is taking the WEPs is actually not something you do on the side as CSR, but it is at the core, at the heart of the business model. And that's really what will make that change. So, and another point I think that was made among many others was about, recruitment is half the battle. I think the tougher challenge is retention. So you can recruit the woman, but making sure there you look at a career-long planning for that individual's promotion, and also giving the opportunities, like you said. Sometimes we are a little bit patriarchal in saying that these ladies and women cannot work in tough locations, but that is not an assumption we should be making. That is up to them, their agency, their choice, which is where I think that's so actually we should not be, as men, trying to do that, protecting thing with good intentions, but it actually does backfire. So I think those were some of the key highlights. Of course, mentorship was mentioned. Oh, the other thing I shouldn't forget, and this is a very important point, something my wife reminds me time and again, and that is to say that you may be working at the office, but when you come home, your work doesn't stop. For women, it doesn't stop. For men, it shouldn't stop either. So need to roll up our sleeves and do more of the household care duties, which actually is very critical. And we have a long way to go there. I think that's where we still are lagging behind for the past decades. So I think that's my message to any men out there listening, including myself. So just to say, ladies and gentlemen, really that's all from us. Let's keep persevering at collective efforts to bridge the gender divide in all domains of our professional and personal lives. Thanks so very much for joining us, and have a safe and good week wherever you may be. Thank you, and wonderful again listening to all of you.